When life hits you hard, most people shrink, shut down, or start believing the lie that they're not strong enough. But I want you to understand something right now. You are far more powerful than the circumstances trying to break you. Tough times don't define you, they reveal you. They expose the strength you forgot you had, the courage you haven't used yet, and the resilience that's been waiting inside you this whole time. This video isn't about ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. No, this is about building an unbreakable mindset, a mindset that stands tall even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. Because the truth is, you can't always choose what life throws at you, but you can always choose how you respond. And that choice, that's where your power lives. Today, I'm going to show you how to stay positive, stay strong, and stay in control even when life tests you to your core. Let's begin. Your state is your power, and most people don't realize how profoundly their emotional and physical state controls the quality of their life. When life gets tough, the first thing that collapses isn't your opportunity, your resources, or your support system, it's your state. Your energy drops, your posture weakens, your breath becomes shallow, your mind floods with doubt. And once your state falls apart, everything else begins to slip with it. But the moment you learn how to consciously shift your state, you reclaim control over your inner world, even when the outer world feels impossible. Think about it. Every decision you make, every thought you think, every action you take is driven by the state you're in. When you're frustrated or scared, you think differently than when you're confident and empowered. When you're drained, you make decisions you'd never make if your energy was high. But here's the breakthrough. Your state isn't something you're stuck with. It's something you can command. You can choose to elevate your energy, your posture, your focus, your breath. You can decide to step into a stronger version of yourself at any moment, even in your lowest moments. The fastest way to shift your mindset is to shift your physiology. You can't stand hunched over, breathing weakly, staring at the floor, and expect to feel powerful and positive. Your body sends signals to your brain every second. Change the signal, and you change the emotion. Stand tall, lift your chest, move with energy. Take a deep, powerful breath. It may seem simple, but your brain responds instantly to these cues. You are not designed to be passive. You are built to move, to act, to command your state like a warrior. When life becomes difficult, most people let their state be determined by their environment, by problems, by stress, by uncertainty. But the people who rise, the people who conquer, are the ones who flip the formula. They make their environment respond to their state, not the other way around. This is what gives you an unbreakable mindset. Because if you can shift your state, you can shift your experience. And when you shift your experience, you change what you believe is possible. Your energy is the foundation of your positivity. You can't think your way into strength when your physiology is in weakness, but you can act your way into a powerful mindset. Even something as simple as changing your breathing pattern or pacing your room with direction and purpose can transform fear into certainty. Momentum kills anxiety. Action destroys doubt. Once your body moves, your mind follows. People often ask, how do I stay positive when everything is falling apart? And the truth is, positivity isn't a feeling, it's a decision. A decision that begins with your state. You choose to stand tall even when you're hurting. You choose to breathe deeply even when you feel overwhelmed. You choose to move with intention even when you're unsure of the path ahead. Positivity is not blind hope. It's the courage to control what you can, starting with your internal world. Your state also determines what you notice. When you're in a weakened state, your mind scans for threats, problems, and worst-case scenarios. When you're in a powerful state, your mind scans for possibilities, solutions, and opportunity. Nothing about the world changed, you changed. And because you changed, the world looks different. In tough times, your emotions can feel heavy, but emotions are not permanent. They're patterns. And patterns can be interrupted and replaced. When you command your state, you break the pattern of fear, doubt, or hopelessness. You replace it with strength, clarity, and focus. This is how you build an unbreakable mindset, by mastering the inner shift that gives you control when everything else feels out of control. Every time life knocks you down, I want you to remember one thing. You are never powerless. As long as you can change your breath, your focus, your physiology, you can change your experience. You can transform chaos into clarity, pain into power, and uncertainty into confidence. Your state is your power. Protect it, guard it, command it. Because the person who controls their state controls their destiny. When life gets tough, your mind naturally wants to jump into chaos. It wants to control everything, people, situations, outcomes, timing, and when it realizes it can't, the stress becomes overwhelming. But the truth is simple and powerful. The fastest way to stay positive in hard times is to narrow your focus. Focus only on what you can control and release what you can't. This single shift can change your emotional world instantly. Most people carry the weight of things that were never their responsibility, never their job, and never within their reach. That weight crushes their energy, their confidence, and eventually their hope. But when you redirect that energy toward what is actually in your hands, suddenly you feel lighter, stronger, and more capable. There are 3 things you truly control in any situation: your actions, your attitude, and your effort. Everything else is noise. You don't control how someone treats you, but you control how you respond. You don't control the timing of life, but you control the discipline you bring to each day. You don't control the past, but you control the meaning you assign to it. And meaning is everything. Meaning determines whether an event becomes your prison or your fuel. When you focus on things outside your control, your mind becomes a battlefield. You start imagining scenarios that haven't happened. You replay conversations you can't change. You worry about outcomes that aren't in your hands. This drains your emotional energy and leaves you feeling stuck. But when you shift your attention to what you can influence right now, you regain power. Even if the situation is messy, even if the future is uncertain, because power doesn't come from controlling everything, it comes from controlling something. People who thrive in difficult times aren't the ones with perfect circumstances. They're the ones who stay grounded in their own circle of control. They invest their energy where it matters. They don't try to fix others, they build themselves. They don't agonize over the unknown, they take action on what's known. They don't wait for conditions to become easy, they execute with what they have. This is how you grow even in chaos. Focusing on what you can control also creates emotional clarity. When the mind feels out of control, it creates panic. Panic closes your vision. You stop seeing opportunities. You start seeing only threats. But when you center your focus on your choices, your habits, your discipline, your growth, your voice, suddenly your vision widens again. You can think clearly. You can breathe again. You can move again. You become resourceful instead of reactive. And positivity grows from resourcefulness, not from perfection. Another breakthrough happens when you stop wasting energy trying to force outcomes. Life rarely follows your schedule. People don't behave exactly how you want. Opportunities don't always show up on your timeline. But when you trust the process and keep your attention on the steps instead of the outcome, things begin to shift. Anxiety decreases, consistency increases, and consistency is the real engine of change. You don't rise because life becomes easy. You rise because you keep choosing actions that build you, even when life is hard. Think about how much mental space you free up when you stop fighting battles you can't win. You stop trying to change someone's mind who doesn't want to understand you. You stop trying to control situations that are unfolding on their own timeline. You stop trying to rewrite the past that already happened. Suddenly, your mind has space for solutions instead of stress, ideas instead of panic, courage instead of fear. And the beautiful part is this: once you focus on what you can control, you actually influence the world around you more effectively. People respond differently when you show up with clarity instead of desperation. Opportunities appear when you're committed, not when you're frantic. Progress happens when you take small, powerful actions consistently, not when you try to control everything at once. So when life feels overwhelming, return to your center. Ask yourself, what is in my control right now? It might be your breath, your reaction, your next step, your preparation, your discipline, your belief. Whatever it is, grab it with both hands and move forward. Because power is not having control over everything, it's knowing where your real control begins and ends. And when you master that, nothing in life can break you. You stay grounded, you stay strong, you stay positive. Even in the storm, when life gets tough, most people lower their standards to match their circumstances. They start accepting less from themselves, giving weaker effort, tolerating behaviors they would never accept in their strongest moments. They tell themselves stories, excuses that justify staying small, staying stuck, staying defeated. But here's the truth: the moment you lower your standards, you lower your power. The moment you raise them, you rise. Your standards shape every decision you make, every action you take, and every result you create. Tough times don't demand excuses. They demand elevation. They demand that you expect more from yourself, not less. Raising your standards means deciding what you will no longer tolerate from life, from others, and most importantly, from yourself. If you tolerate weakness, you'll live in weakness. If you tolerate negativity, you'll drown in it. If you tolerate excuses, you'll become ruled by them. Excuses are seductive because they give you an identity that protects you from short-term discomfort, but that same identity destroys your long-term potential. When you raise your standards, you break that identity. You declare that you refuse to live beneath what you know you're capable of, even if life is testing you, even if you're tired, even if things feel unfair. People often think raising standards is about being perfect. It's not. It's about aligning your life with the direction you want to grow, not the emotions you feel in the moment. Anyone can be disciplined when life is smooth. Anyone can be positive when things are easy. True strength is revealed when you hold yourself to a higher standard, especially when you feel like collapsing. When you choose growth over comfort, when you do the work even when motivation is gone, when you show up for yourself even when no one is watching, this is the foundation of an unbreakable mindset. Excuses may feel comforting, but they cost you everything: your peace, your progress, your potential. And the scary part is this: excuses grow. Once you allow one, it multiplies. You skip one day of discipline, then two. You let one negative thought slide, then it becomes a belief. You allow one moment of weakness to lead your day, and suddenly your entire life feels out of your hands. But standards also grow. Every time you demand more of yourself, you build internal strength. Every time you rise instead of hide, your confidence expands. When you raise your standards, your mind adapts, your behavior shifts, and life begins to align with who you're becoming. In tough times, excuses seem justified. Pain becomes a reason to stop. Fear becomes a reason to hesitate. Failure becomes a reason to give up. But the people who break through, the ones who create powerful transformations, don't allow circumstances to dictate their standard. They don't say, I'll try. They say, I must, I will, no matter what. That shift from optional to non-negotiable changes everything. When you make something a must, your mind finds a way. When it's optional, your mind finds an excuse. Raising your standards also changes your identity. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who hopes for strength, but as someone who embodies it. Not as someone who reacts to life, but as someone who leads it. Your habits evolve, your environment evolves, your boundaries evolve. You stop entertaining relationships that drain you because your standard for respect rises. You stop wasting time because your standard for productivity rises. You stop speaking negatively to yourself because your standard for self-worth rises. This shift is not loud or dramatic. It's a quiet, powerful recalibration within your soul. There will always be reasons to quit, to slow down, to compromise, but you weren't designed to live a life defined by excuses. You were designed to rise, to grow, to push through. Strength doesn't come from avoiding struggle. It comes from deciding who you will be in the middle of it. And when your standards rise, you rise with them. Your decisions sharpen. Your mindset hardens. Your energy becomes unstoppable. When life gets tough, don't shrink your standards to fit the moment. Raise your standards to shape your future. Excuses may feel safe, but they keep you small. Your standards pull you into a higher version of yourself, a version that can handle uncertainty, pain, setbacks, and pressure. And once you taste what that version feels like, you'll never go back. When life becomes heavy and problems start to stack up, most people make a critical mistake. They feed their problems more than they feed their mind. They replay their fears, amplify their stress, obsess over worst-case scenarios, and give more attention to what's breaking than to what can build them. But your mind is like a garden. Whatever you feed, it grows. If you nourish it with negativity, doubt, and worry, those emotions will take over your life. But if you feed it with strength, wisdom, clarity, and empowering thoughts, your resilience will grow even in the darkest moments. The quality of your mindset always reflects the quality of what you consistently put into it. Feeding your mind more than your problems doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or ignoring reality. It means choosing what becomes dominant inside you. Problems will always exist. They're part of life. But when your mind is stronger than your problems shrink. When your mind is weaker than your problems expand. What you focus on becomes your emotional truth, even if it's not the whole truth. And this is where you reclaim your power. The moment you choose to feed your mind more intentionally, you choose to rise above circumstances that once felt overwhelming. Your mind needs nourishment just like your body does. It needs empowering messages, powerful ideas, uplifting environments, meaningful conversations, and routines that support growth. When times get tough, people often isolate themselves mentally. They stop reading things that inspire them. They stop listening to messages that push them forward. They stop engaging in habits that fuel their strength. And slowly, the mind becomes starved. A starved mind becomes weak, and a weak mind makes even small problems feel impossible. But something extraordinary happens when you flip the process. Instead of feeding the problem with your attention, you feed your mindset with tools that help you rise. You consume messages that make you feel capable. You seek knowledge that helps you understand your challenges instead of fear them. You choose people who elevate your thinking rather than deepen your worry. You expose yourself to ideas that expand what you believe is possible. When you do this consistently, your emotional state changes even if your circumstances haven't yet. Your problems shout loudly, but your potential whispers. You have to feed the whisper until it becomes the voice that leads you. When you wake up, choose what you want to put in your mind, something that weakens you or something that strengthens you. A negative thought is cheap and easily accessible. A powerful thought requires intention, but intention is what creates transformation. The books you read, the videos you watch, the voices you listen to, the environment you stay in, all of these shape the strength of your mind. And when your mind is strong, staying positive becomes natural, not forced. People often underestimate how much influence mental input has on emotional output. If you feed your mind with constant fear, constant drama, constant negativity, you're training yourself to live in survival mode. But if you feed it with gratitude, strategy, courage, and solutions, you're training yourself to live in growth mode. In survival mode, everything feels urgent, stressful, and overwhelming. In growth mode, everything becomes an opportunity to evolve, adapt, and rise. Problems may demand your attention, but they don't deserve your whole mind. You can acknowledge the problem without surrendering to it. You can face the challenge without feeding the fear. The question isn't, do you have problems? The question is, what are you feeding more, your fear or your focus, your problems or your potential? One creates paralysis, the other creates power. And remember, feeding your mind isn't just about consuming positivity. It's also about removing what poisons your thinking. Sometimes the strongest step you can take is to disconnect from the noise that weakens you. Step away from the negativity disguised as entertainment. Step away from the people whose conversations drain your hope. Step away from environments that trigger your worst patterns. Protecting your mind is part of feeding it. You can't plant seeds in a toxic soil and expect them to grow. The truth is, your mind is your most valuable resource in hard times. Money, opportunities, relationships, support, these come and go. But the strength of your mind determines whether you break or rise. Feed it wisely, especially when life tests you the most. Because if you feed your mind more than your problems, your mind will eventually become strong enough to solve them. And that is how you build a mindset that doesn't just survive adversity, but transforms through it. In the end, staying positive when life gets tough isn't about pretending the storm isn't real. It's about remembering that the storm doesn't control you. Hard moments will come, challenges will rise, people will disappoint you, and plans will fall apart. But inside you is a strength far greater than anything you face. You've survived every single one of your worst days. You've risen every time life tried to break you. And that resilience is not an accident, it's who you are. Your power comes from the choices you make every single day. The choice to command your state, the choice to focus where your influence lives, the choice to raise your standards, the choice to feed your mind with strength instead of fear. These choices create an unbreakable mindset, a mindset that doesn't fold under pressure but grows sharper because of it. Life isn't waiting to be easier, it's waiting for you to rise. And you can. You will. Because once you understand your own power, once you start leading your mind instead of following your fears, nothing can stop you. Not the past, not the pain, not the pressure. You are built for more than just survival. You are built for greatness. Keep going. Keep growing. The world hasn't seen the strongest version of you yet.